Good morning, everyone. Happy tax day, not tax day. There's a benefit, right? We got a delay in our taxes. So everyone's coming in, so I'm going to give it a minute. We have an amazing turnout again. If you could do me a favor, find the chat on the top, somewhere, right, left, bottom, top, and just write in the chat that you can hear me. That would be awesome. I just want to make sure that my volume is working and I'm not on mute. I don't look like I'm on mute. All right, awesome. Thank you, guys. We have another amazing turnout for our webinar. So I'm super excited. You guys can hang out with me in my house, my fancy house. That's not my real house, just so you guys know. While we talk about some of the things that we have coming up, things that we need to do in our practices and to get ready to get reopened or take advantage of this time that we have. So awesome. So great. So I'm going to get started. I'm assuming a lot of you have been on my past webinar, so you know who I am. If you are just hearing about these webinars, your first time joining us, my name is Laura Hatch. I am the founder of Front Office Rocks. I am a dental office manager who 7 years ago started an online training website when nobody in dentistry knew what online training was. And now everybody knows about online training and webinars and Zoom and all of the fun things that we're doing. So I am here not as an expert on COVID, not as an expert on HR legal advice. I'm not a HR specialist. I am an office manager. And when the tough get going, the going get tough, right? So it's tough right now. And my focus is to help team members and dentists put their heads down and figure out what are we going to do? What are some of the things that we can do to take advantage of this time? And what are the things we can do to get ready for when we go back? Because this is an unprecedented time, and it's not going to be necessarily a hard year, but it's going to be a different year than ever before. Whether you're new to dentistry or not, this is going to be an interesting 2020. So one thing I want to start with yesterday, if you don't already follow us on Facebook, follow Front Office Rocks on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I'm always adding new content to those sites. And last night I did a Facebook Live because I was on a webinar last night in a study club. And the Remo is the study club leader, asked us to dress up in costume. And I've never done a webinar in a costume before. So you got to go over to Front Office Rocks Facebook account and see. I did a live webinar I had a mustache and everything. So you got to check it out. But it was actually a really good wake-up call to one of the things that I believe in is if it's not fun, don't do it. My big thing is that we need to find fun in everything we do. And sometimes our days are stressful. Sometimes our months are stressful. We need to find some fun in everything we do, or we need to make things that we don't love fun. I forgot about that since about March 15th. It's not been fun. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a dentist and I don't have to lay off team members and furlough and all that, but I do have a team myself at Front Office Rocks. I do have family members I'm worried about. I do have a business that I'm trying to maintain. So it has not been very much fun lately. But when I put on a mustache last night and a cowboy hat, I started to realize, you know what? I think we're coming out of this. I think we've hit the bottom point and it's now time to start trying to have fun again. So it's not going to be easy going back. We have a lot of things that we need to work on, and we're going to have lots of issues with the schedule, which I'll talk about. But let's try to have fun. Let's try to be thankful. I mean, I've seen a lot of people put out there, if we don't learn a message from this, then what was the point? Let's be thankful for, the lessons we're learning, the time that we have, the time with our family. I know we're homeschooling and all that, but let's try to find the silver lining with all this and start having some fun. So check me out on Facebook if that was kind of the whole thought there and my thought on that. So today what we're going to talk about, if you haven't joined us before, this is my 4th webinar, I think, since we got started. And basically I'm breaking it down into things that your team should be working on or could be working on, or things you should be doing to open back up as productive as possible. So the first week we talked about patient care and communication with your patient. So go back and watch that, or have your team watch it if you haven't. Last week we talked about team training and skill building, because this is a great time. Our teams are available. They have time to be watching videos, to be learning, to be growing. So we focused on skill building and team building. Today, we're going to talk about things you should be doing to get ahead for when you open back up. So we're going to focus on some specific things that you could be working on now so that the second half of the year, or hopefully we're in before July, but that's when we get back to the office, we're ahead, right? We've already done a lot of stuff so that it's kind of like prepping the meal before you put it all together and stick it in the oven. And then next week, I'm going to talk about other projects. So if we're still quarantined and we're still out of work, what are some of the other things that we never have time to get to? I will continue these webinars as long as we are continue to be out of the office. So at the end of next week, I don't have a new topic. So I am definitely open to talking with you guys about whatever you're interested in talking about. So please either comment on Facebook, come here, write comments, give me suggestions, talk to my team. If you go to Front Office Rocks, we have a live chat. Let them know some of the topics that you'd like to talk about. I'll give you an example right now, and then I'll get going. I was on a webinar a couple days ago, and they asked me about OSHA and safety precautions for our front office team members when we go back. And I've never really had to think about that before. Like in the front office, we don't have to be as conscious of wearing gloves and changing gloves and exchanging bodily fluids and all of that. Well, we're going to need to think about that when we go back. And I mentioned it in here. So maybe we should talk about, what does that look like? Like, do we still want to accept money, cash, right? When we are, patients are paying, how do we want to accept their credit cards? Do we want to be touching the credit cards? How do we want to sterilize the office? Does the front office team wear gloves? Like, I kind of think that's an interesting topic. I don't necessarily know the answers to that, but I'll do the research if you guys are interested in that. So somebody already asked me, I know you guys can hear me. Hopefully, Lori, you can hear me now. Everybody else can hear me just fine. My courses do offer CE at Front Office Rocks, just so you guys know. We are Front Office Rocks, but we also have Back Office Rocks, which is dental assistant, hygienist, team, and doctor training. So we offer CE on our courses. It's not qualified for Certified Business Dental Professional degree, which I don't know exactly what that is. So reach out to me. I'll find out more about it. Maybe we can get certified. But as of right now, no. Okay, so I'm trying to find little fun things every week that kind of get me going. And it's funny how all of a sudden we're hearing everyone's talking about washing their hands and all of this. And I don't know about you guys, but it's so frustrating sometimes when you see people who are like wearing gloves, who are eating food and taking money and touching things and wearing the same gloves. You're like, okay, that's not the concept. Or they're taking their masks and they're putting it down around their mouth, and then they're using their hands and putting it back up, and they're not covering their nose. So we get that we were cool before all this happened because we actually understood and we washed our hands. So just kind of my little humor on that. So here's the thing, and we had a doctor mention this in the mastermind 2 weeks ago. He says, he told his team when he opens back up, he wants to open back up like a Tesla, and I'm not a car person, but 0 to 60 and whatever, right? That's exactly what we should be working on right now. We should plan your work for today and then work your plan. Like, we should be thinking ahead. What is that first day going to look like? What is that first week going to look like? What's the first month? And then what's the rest of the year going to look like? We have plenty of time right now to think. So let's plan, let's do things so that when we are actually in work, we're ahead. We've already thought of the things, we've already prepped, we've already organized, we've already got our structure together so that we're not wasting time when we get back in the office. Because one of the hardest resource we have, or the toughest resource to get in the dental office, is time. We just don't have enough time. Remember, think back to January when you were super busy and crazy and we had no time to do anything. That's what we want to plan for now, to be ahead of that with when we get back to the practice. So I mentioned the other webinars. If you haven't seen them or you want to share them with your team, go to frontofficerocks.com/opportunity. We have all the webinars saved there. And then you can also register for the next webinar there, and get in touch with my team if you have any questions or ideas, because I see that some people are interested in the OSHA thing too. So there we go. I'm going to do a webinar in 2 weeks and we're going to talk about that. So again, this is where we are right now, how to get ahead. Next week, we're going to do projects that we never have time to do. And then we've already done the other two that are saved for you. And then I'm excited, our mastermind group is growing. So we are up to, I don't know how many, 100 and some people that come on Thursday mornings. If you are a member of Front Office Rocks, you come. Hopefully I get you to turn your camera on and we talk about whatever you guys want to talk about, issues that you're having, questions that you have, suggestions. It's a mastermind, meaning we share. It's not just me talking to you. It's the whole group having ideas. And I've heard a bunch from the members that are great ideas. So if you're a member of Front Office Rocks, or when you become a member of Front Office Rocks, make sure you join us on the mastermind calls on Thursday. So again, this is what we're going to focus on this week. What can we do to get ahead? So I broke into some of my foundation courses, my foundation thoughts, to put us in the right mindset when we're talking about getting ahead when we open back up. And one of the things that I feel in dental offices, so let's just get away from COVID at this point. Let's just talk about dental offices, is that we have a lot of people who are really busy. We are always busy. Everybody's busy. We don't have enough time. The assistants are here, hygienists are here, we're seeing patients, we're busy. But the problem is we can all be busy with the right intention, but if we're not all working towards the same goal, then we're not very effective. So this is a great time for us to sit back and think, how can we get our teams aligned? How can we get everybody going towards the same goal? For me, I would say, and I'm not telling you to this is what your goal needs to be, but my goal would be to, how do we get our practice back up to the 100% goals that we're trying to achieve the fastest, safest, and most effective way? So what does that look like? Where are we trying to get back to? How are we going to get hygiene back in the schedules? How are we going to handle the cancellations and no-shows? How are we going to handle team members that have kids at home? And if we all are going towards the same goal, what it does is it makes all of our actions, all of our duties, all of our tasks, all the calls we're making and the things we're doing, working towards that same goal. So my thought right now is having a discussion with your team. What does that goal look like? What is it you guys are trying to achieve for the rest of this year? So we can prepare for that. The actions that we do right now and the actions we do that first day, week, and month go towards that goal. Now, one of the things that I teach for the front office, and right now I think it's for the whole team, not just the front office, is what is your true intention behind everything you do? And my thought is everybody's true intention in the front office of everything they do should be #butts in the chair. Okay. So I want you, if you can go out on social media and say, I watched Laura speak and she's got this figured out, it's #butts in the chair. I would love you for that, because that is ultimately what we need to be focused on in the front office. When I'm doing confirmation calls, what's the goal of a confirmation call? To get the patient's butt in the chair. If I'm verifying insurance benefits, why am I doing that? To get the patient's butt in the chair. I'm doing reactivation calls or outstanding treatment plan calls. What's the purpose of that? Butts in the chair. So in the front office, everything that we do in the front office should have the intention or the goal of patients' butts in the chair. Then from there, the clinical staff takes it, right? Their goal is to get the patient safe and healthy and out of pain. But right now, our entire team should be focused on this, #butts in the chair. Because everything we're doing, whether it's getting organized, whether it's calling patients, whether it's organizing the lab or scanning documents or reorganizing supplies, whatever, we're doing it so that we have more time available when the office opens up to get butts in the chair, right? What I don't want is nobody has time to help the front office make reactivation calls or call patients who fell out of the schedule during this because they need to order supplies. We need to order supplies now. We need to get our ordering figured out now. We need to, do all of those things now so that when we get back in, our goal as a team is butts in the chair. That's how we're going to be more successful when we start back up and we get back in. So first step, and I've already kind of alluded to this, and we'll talk about it, I'll get more together and we'll talk about it in 2 weeks, is how do we deal with the new normal? How are we going to deal with COVID-19? It's not going to go away. It's not like one day they're going to say, oh, everybody's okay, everybody's safe, everybody go back to normal. We're still going to have elderly, and I talked about this last week, elderly patients and compromised patients and patients who, whether we've had it or not, they're not immune to it. We're going to have people who are nervous and scared about COVID-19 and about everything. So we need to make sure that we figure out how to deal with the new normal. And we need to figure out a plan. I talked about this last week. Like, what is the plan with how we're going to communicate this to our patients? How we're going to make sure that they know that we're following all the protocols, we're being safe, we're being healthy. We need to get that written. We need to get it on our website. We need to get it communicated. I don't know if you guys can tell or not, but I'm ignoring somebody at my front door. He doesn't look like Prince Charming or anything, so I'm just going to ignore it. I'm not really sure why he's knocking on the door. So I'm going to act like I'm not here. So we need to update and communicate and handle the safety precautions. Get it on your website, get it on your Facebook page, get your team saying the same thing about how you guys handle safety and health for the patients. Figure out how you're going to screen people. Are you going to, and I'm not a safety health expert, but are you going to take temperatures? Are you going to ask if they've traveled out of the country? Like, what are you guys going to do to make your office safe? And then make sure you have that plan figured out to be able to communicate to your team and then communicate to your patients. That should be number one. The second thing I would do is deep clean your office from top to bottom. Just in general, you should be throwing away old magazines anyway, right? If it's an old magazine that was, whatever, throw away all your old magazines, clean up your office, clean up the refrigerator, throw away anything that's disposable that really doesn't need to be lingering around. Do a deep clean on everything in the office to make sure that everything looks clean. It's a perfect time to clean from top to bottom, get it so that it looks healthy, it is safe, and everything looks clean. So deep clean from top to bottom. The next is equipment. I do not want to go back into the practice and then not be able to see patients because something's broken. This is the time to do equipment repair. This is the time to do all the maintenance. If your maintenance is normally on Fridays or once a month, go in there and do it now. Let's get ahead when it comes to maintenance. Deep clean all of the equipment. Like, this is the perfect time to spring clean, it is spring, your office so that you don't have to take time later doing this kind of thing. Because ultimately, butts in the chair. We want production when we get back, and we don't want to have downtime because a handpiece isn't working or because a chair is broken. Let's get all of that fixed. So that's on the clinical and cleanliness side. Now, the next thing I would say is let's look at accounts receivable and insurance. Let's clean up. We don't have the time that we do now. Let's clean up everything having to do with accounts receivable. Now, I'm not saying you're going to collect on all the accounts receivable. I don't think that everyone's going to be paying their bills right now and your 90-day and 120-day overdue is going to pay. But you should be making sure you know where all the balances are coming from. You should be making sure that you can explain to the patients where their balance is coming from. You should be looking at your insurances. Are the percentages going in correctly? Are we making notes that are clear where the balances are coming from? Do we have the system set up? Because going forward, when we open back up, this is the time we could have cleaned up a lot of that stuff. This is the time, if a patient has a balance because we entered the wrong insurance or because the percentages were wrong on what we estimated, don't just figure that out, but go back and fix the problem so that going forward, we don't have the same problem. Does that make sense? Like, go back and clean up the things that made us, if there's a way to, that made the patient have the unexpected balance. Also go in and come up with standard operating procedures. How are we going to make sure that insurances are entered correctly? How are we going to make sure that the right employer groups were put in there? How are we going to make sure that the percentages are entered correctly? How are we going to make sure we put our notes in there so everybody on the team has the same, reads the notes the same way and understands where the balance comes from? This is the perfect time to get your accounts receivable and your insurance organized. It's also a perfect time to clean up. If you're not an insurance person or if you're not a front office person, you may not have seen this, but if I were to go into your practice management software, the majority of offices have a mess when it comes to employers, insurance groups. Like, one group might be listed 6 times. We have a few patients over here and a few patients connected to this insurance. This is the time to clean all of that stuff up. So what I would suggest is look at outstanding insurances, look at overdue balances, look at employer list, and look at insurance list. Now, I will say, only mess in this area, only clean this up if you're trained to do it, if you fully understand it. So reach out to, your trainers for EagleSoft, Open Dental, Dentrix, watch videos, come to Front Office Rocks YouTube channel because we have stuff on there for Dentrix and Eaglesoft. Like learn, go through the FAQs of how to clean it up, and then spend some time really cleaning these up, because most of the time we don't have the time to clean up these lists. We also can't do it a lot of times because we have insurance claims attached to the patient and we can't close the claim until the claim's paid. And we've just had 3, 4, 5 weeks off where there's not a lot of activity. So it's a perfect time to be cleaning up a lot of these lists. So here's a good example. Like this is just an employer group, UUP, right? And look at how many different Delta Dental groups there are. So under each one, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Delta Dental groups. And each one of them probably have 1 or 2 patients attached to each one of those Delta Dental groups, when really they all should be attached to the right one, and we shouldn't have 6 variations of the same employer group and the same insurance. So if you need help with this, we just did a 7-hour training on last Friday, a virtual training. And we have Insurance Mastery, where we have Colleen Huff, who is our insurance go-to guru, who really breaks down insurance, and she's our go-to at Front Office Rocks. So come over if you need help, and we can at least advise you in the right way. We're not going to tell you exactly what to do in your software because we're not software trainers, but we can tell you what you need to look at and clean up. And again, here's another one where there's like 3 examples of Delta Dental of Georgia. You see Delta Dental of New York, Delta Dental of NY. Like these are the kind of things that we can be cleaning up so that we have one employer or group, one insurance, and all the patients are attached to them are the right ones. Then for the second half of the year, now we can attach them to the right ones. So it's a great time to do cleanup, okay? Also now it's a great time to look at your schedule. And I'm going to talk a few minutes about block scheduling, scheduling for production, productive scheduling. There's a bunch of different terms around it. Many people have heard about it. If you've been, on social media and in groups, they're like schedule for production and block scheduling, effective scheduling, but not a lot of people have really been taught how to do it, especially beyond the scheduler. Okay, so dentists, have you actually learned how to build a productive schedule? Front office team members, have you ever really been taught? I talked about this last week, like you get thrown to the wolves a lot of times. Here's how you build a schedule, but did you get taught the basics of how to build a schedule? The hardest part of going to a productive schedule for an operating dental office is that the schedule's already the way it is. And so it's hard to change things. But here's the best part about right now. The schedule is empty at the moment, right? We can start building a productive schedule and reorganizing and get the schedule set to be productive and efficient and help us hit goals when we get back. And we could take the time right now to learn how to do it, okay? So here's the thing, and I don't know if you guys remember this because it's been weeks now, but do you remember when you walked in the morning and you went to the huddle and you looked at the schedule in the morning and you thought, okay, there's the schedule. What's the only thing, I'm going to ask you right now, what's the only thing we can guarantee about that schedule? It's not going to run the way it looks, right? It's not going to run, it's because something's going to happen. Someone's going to run late. An instrument's going to break. Somebody's going to cancel. Somebody's going to no-show. So we already know that about the schedule. Only maybe 1 day a year does it actually run the way it's supposed to. So what I suggest is let's learn how to effectively block the schedule, hit goals, and make sure that we're proactively handling issues that arise, because issues arise every single day in the dental office, all right? So here's the basics of of putting a productive schedule together. I'm not gonna go over all of it except for one part, but just to give you an idea, the reason a productive schedule, a block scheduling, a scheduling for production is important is because first of all, it's important to the patients and the team. And what I mean by that is we talk about patients don't know if we're good dentists or not, but they know how they feel when they're in the office. And how good is their experience if you tell them to show up for an appointment at 1 o'clock and you guys are running 20 minutes behind and the patient doesn't get sat till 1:20? How good is the experience for the patients if you tell them it's going to be a 30-minute appointment and it ends up being an hour and a half, right? So we have to understand that running an effective schedule is good customer service. It's also one of the only things in the office that affects everybody on the team. The schedule can make or break our days. Do you remember that? Like, I feel like it's like so long ago, years ago when we worked in a dental office. Do you remember those days that stuff starts falling apart and everybody's stressed and everybody's having, I mean, it's just, you go home and you feel exhausted. Well, it's because the schedule didn't run well. It's because we worked so hard. And at the end of the day, we've many times felt like we didn't produce very much because it's just running us, okay? So the schedule is the most important system in the dental office, in my opinion. Second thing is we have to make it a game. The schedule will always change. The schedule will always, especially now, we're about to go back in and have a lot of changes and cancellations and no-shows, hopefully not, but we're gonna have a lot going on with the schedule. We can't go in with the attitude of, oh God, schedule's changing again, this sucks, right? We have to go into it like a game. Like I started this webinar, let's start having some fun. So how can we build a game with it? And your best schedulers like me are people who love a game. Give me a good schedule any day. That's my favorite part of the front office, okay? So we've got to have the right attitude. Next, we have to put our primary appointments in first. And I'm gonna talk about that in a minute, but our primary appointments are the appointments that are gonna get us to our daily goal faster. Then we need to add blocks for those primary appointments. What I mean by that is we actually have to save spots in the schedule so that our primary appointments can get put into the schedule first. If we don't block for primary appointments, what happens is we just throw everything into the schedule. And then when we need to put a primary appointment in, there's no place to put it because there's not enough room in the schedule. It's full of a lot of little stuff. And so either we have one of two choices. We take a primary appointment, which is our higher dollar, it's gonna get us to our goal faster, and we push it out too far, like 2-3 weeks, whatever, or we sideline it. And then next thing you know, we're running around like chickens with our heads cut off and we're exhausted again. So we need to put our blocks in to hold for primary appointments or any important appointments. Then we need to continually improve the schedule. The most important day in the schedule is today. The next most important day is tomorrow. The next most important day is 2 days from now. Don't worry about September. We'll get there. Let's focus on today, tomorrow, the next day, okay? Then we need to make sure we train anybody that schedules, which I'm gonna talk about. A lot of times we just tell people, here's how you put appointments in the schedule, and we don't train them. And then next thing you know, we've got an appointment that should take an hour, or we've got it scheduled for 20 minutes. We've got patients sidelined. We've got people upset. We've got, team members that are stressed because we didn't train our team how to build a productive schedule. And then lastly, you need to have a scheduling policy. We need to write down for your office what your policy is going to be, which I'm going to talk about, okay? So the basics of productive scheduling is that you put primary appointments in your schedule first. Primary appointments are high dollar value appointments. So primary appointments, doesn't matter the length, doesn't matter if it's 20 minutes, an hour, hour and a half, 3 hours, it's a high dollar value appointment. You need to decide for your office what that dollar value is. In my office, it was anything $1,000 or more. So any appointment that had a value of $1,000 or more was a primary appointment. And like I said, so you need to decide for your practice what that is, but it could be a 20-minute appointment. It could be a 30-minute appointment. That part didn't matter. It was the dollar value. Now, most of the primary appointments are usually larger appointments. So in my practice, they're usually an hour and a half. And so we would block hour and a half slots for our primary appointments so that we would fill the schedule with the primary appointments first. There's a couple reasons for that. Usually that's the higher, I don't want to say importance, but higher need appointment for patients, right? We're talking root canals, we're talking crowns, we're talking bridges, we're talking bigger cases. And we're gonna hit our daily goal faster with those primary appointments. So we put the primaries in first. In my practice, we used Eaglesoft. Eaglesoft, you could color code it by type of appointment. So primary appointments are green because that's the same color as money. So I know when I'm looking in the schedule, if I have a lot of green appointments on that day, we're gonna hit our goal because there's a lot of green. Next is secondary appointments. Secondary appointments are anything below the high dollar, but there's still a dollar value associated with it. So maybe fillings or whitening or whatever, things that are under the $1,000 threshold are secondary appointments. Those go in after or around the primaries. We still hold for the primaries, but secondaries won't go in place of a primary. In my practice, secondaries were orange. So if I have a day full of orange, but no green, I need to make sure that I get green in there so that we're gonna hit our day and our primaries are in there first. That's why I hold the blocks, okay? Then lastly are tertiary appointments. And tertiary appointments are anything with no dollar value. They're not gonna help us hit our goal. So evals, maybe if you don't charge, depending on the eval, adjustments, try-ins, whatever it is, there's no dollar value associated with them. You still need to have them. They're important appointments, but they're not going to help us hit our goal. In my office, tertiary appointments are brown because that's the same color as, okay, I'm not going to say it, but we knew if I have a day with a lot of brown in there and no green, it's going to be a crappy day, right? So the point is, you build a schedule like a puzzle. Like when I go to do a puzzle, I don't just dump all the pieces out and start trying to fit them together. I organize them, and everybody does a puzzle differently. But what I do is I put them in groups of colors, like here's the blues, here's the ones with a lot of writing on it, here's the greens. Then I take the outline and I do the outside part of the puzzle. Then I start bringing things in and putting pieces together. And before I know it, I have a complete puzzle. It's the exact same thing with the schedule. But what we do right now is we just kind of throw stuff in the schedule. We just put it in wherever the patient wants to go, wherever we think it fits. And then we have a mess and we aren't actually building a puzzle. So building a productive puzzle means that your team needs to understand this, and they need to understand why primary is going first. And here's the financial reason behind that. Let's say your daily goal, and I can work out, I mean, this is the training we have on Front Office Rocks. How do you figure out your daily goal, right? And your daily goal may change as you get back to the practice, because we're not going to go back at 100%. We're going to go back at 50% and then 75%. So we need to analyze that. What is going to be your daily goal? Your daily goal for the doctor is 2625. Let's say an average primary is 1200. Well, we're going to get to 2625 a lot faster with 2 primary appointments in the schedule than we are with a bunch of tertiary appointments, right? So that's the whole concept behind why we block for primary appointments, so that we can get our patients in as soon as possible. Ultimately, at the end of the day, that's the whole goal of why we're here. But it's also to have a schedule that runs efficiently, that's not just running around crazy. I just realized there's a big light on my face. That's not running around crazy, and that we know we're going to hit our goal, so that we know at the end of the day, we're going to have a productive, effective schedule. All right. So you have to block things that are important in your schedule, not just, and I see questions coming in, so I'm not ignoring you. I'll just get to them. We have to block your schedule for important things, not just primaries, but meetings, new patient appointments, emergencies, whatever it is you have problems getting into your schedule, you want to make sure that you block for those. The second thing you want to do is you want to plan for emergencies, cancellations, and no-shows. We're going to have them. I just did a webinar last night when I was wearing the mustache, and somebody said, well, how am I going to get all my hygiene patients in the schedule when I'm already booked for 6 months in hygiene? I feel, I'm not going to guarantee, I don't want to put that on you, but I feel like we're going to have a lot of cancellations in hygiene. Even though you're booked solid right now, we're going to have people, and I talked about this last week, we're going to have people who aren't going to be comfortable coming to the dentist yet, don't have the financial means to come back to the dentist because they have other priorities. They're going to get busy with work again. They're going to have kids at home and they have to cancel their appointment. They're going to be small business owners and they need to get back to work. So there are going to be cancellations in our schedule, and we need to plan for it. We also need to empty out our quick fill and our ASAP list right now. I say this just generally in general anyway, but I would say it even more so right now. Most of the time, our ASAP list or our quick fill list is just a dumping zone where we just put appointments that canceled, and nobody really uses it for what it is. It's even worse now because it's been sitting there and not called on and not managed or taken care of for weeks. I suggest you just clean out your quick fill ASAP list, because the idea behind a quick fill ASAP list is to quickly fill or to find ASAP patients to get in as soon as possible. So I suggest you clean it out right now and you just start using it for real about patients who want to come in, people that want to come in sooner than later. So that way, when you do get a last minute cancellation, you can go to this quick fill list and either send a text message or put a phone call out to try to quickly fulfill the appointment. I also think that you should condense days. I think that, like I said, or consider condensing days or weeks. I'm not saying that you have to. I don't think we're going to open up at 100% capacity. And there's nothing more stressful than getting back to work and then having 3 hours in the middle of the day with no patients in the schedule. So I would suggest if you don't feel like you're going to open up at 100% capacity, maybe consider things like working 5 hours a day instead of 8, maybe working 3 days to start instead of 4, Or maybe doing split shift. So you have half the team work in the morning and another half of the team work in the afternoon. Because when we go back to work, our team members still have kids at home, still have things they have to deal with. So consider being creative right now as we start to ramp back up. The next is discuss all the scenarios of what could happen and make a plan. So I'm trying to bring up discussions for you right now of, have you thought about this? Have you planned for this? That's what I suggest you do with your team. Get together and say, what are all of the things that might happen? Because your office may be different than the office down the street. Your office might be different than my office. You're in a different state. You have different laws. You have different patients work in different locations. So we need to talk about all the scenarios for our office and then make a plan of how we're going to handle that when we open back up. And then I would go ahead and start discussing the rest of the year. Let's just start thinking about, okay, well, we have 7 months potentially to make up for the 2 or 3 months that we lost. How is that going to look for the rest of the year? We know we're going to get busy, hopefully at the end of the year with insurance, especially now, everybody didn't use their insurance and all of that. We typically take a week off between Christmas and New Year. Are we still going to do that? Are we still going to take the Wednesday before Thanksgiving? Are we going to stay closed on Fridays? Or when it gets to the end of the year, are we going to open on Fridays? Are we going to consider Saturdays potentially? Like, let's start thinking about a plan so that when this gets rolling, we've planned for the rest of the year, because the hope is that you can make up as much as possible by December. You're probably not going to make it up the first month you open. So let's think about the whole year now and make a plan accordingly. The last thing I would say is writing out a scheduling policy. This is a perfect time to be writing policies and standard operating procedures and checklists and training videos and all of the things that we can do in the office. So I suggest that your office, your team get together, if you haven't already or you haven't looked at it in a while, and talk about all the areas where the schedule falls apart. When do things fall behind? When do things fall apart? And then what do we do around them? You know, if a patient runs 10 minutes late, do we see them or not? If we're running behind 15 minutes or more, what do we do? Do we call the next patient? How do we handle that? How do we handle all these scenarios? And then I suggest you agree as a team of what the policy is going to be around them. And then you make a list, and then that's your scheduling policy for when you go back. Because what happens right now is, without a policy, something happens. For example, a patient runs 10 minutes late. Well, the receptionist is like, well, I don't know. Are we going to see the patient? I don't know. Go ask the hygienist. And you go ask the hygienist. Are we going to see the patient? They're 10 minutes late. I don't know. You need to ask the doctor. So doctor and the assistant's like, can you get the doctor? We need to see if, and we spend 10 minutes trying to decide if we're going to see the patient who's 10 minutes late versus just getting them in the chair and getting started or rescheduling them. So this is the time to start talking about, we know patients run late. So if they're 5 minutes late, do they see them or not? If they're 10 minutes late, if they're 15 minutes late, what is your team policy? So then when that patient runs late, we don't have to ask 6 people. We know exactly what the policy is. It also eliminates drama in the office, because what happens right now is when nobody knows the policy, there's a lot of this. Well, she told me to do it. Well, the assistants decided to do it. Well, the front office team squeezed another emergency in. Well, the doctor made us do it. And then we have drama, and then we have stress, and then we're exhausted by the end of the day. If we have a policy, we can point to the policy and say, this is the policy. We all agreed to it. I'm following the policy. I'm no longer pointing fingers. I'm pointing at the policy. So there's a lot of reasons to have a really good scheduling policy. And then teach your team scheduling, the basics of scheduling. This is a perfect time, even if you're clinical, it's a perfect time for you to understand how to build a productive schedule for a couple of reasons. So you know why the team is building the schedule they are for you. You can jump in and help. You understand the philosophy, just like I understand the philosophy, the clinical, and the way to talk to patients about periodontal disease. I'm not actually going to pick up an instrument and do anything on a patient, but I understand so I can communicate with patients, with the team, with the hygiene team about our patients who have perio. That's the same with the clinical team. You should understand the concepts of things that happen in the front, one of them being the schedule, because it runs your day just like it runs ours. So definitely training on that. And then also make sure that you're scheduling meetings in, especially now going back into the office. I suggest that minimally you guys should be having a meeting once a month as a team, and maybe even more right now as we're trying to ramp back up. a quick half an hour meeting on Fridays or something, because we need to stay abreast and keep the team on the same page. You need to have an agenda. You need to have ground rules with your team meetings. This is a perfect time to establish that. So when we go back in and we do have a half an hour meeting, it's productive. We know exactly what we're talking about. The other thing is I would make sure you block for them, because one of the things we don't have enough time or enough in the dental office is time. By September, October, November, we're going to be busy again. And if we didn't hold that spot for that meeting, hopefully you're busy again, right? And if we didn't hold that spot for that meeting, the spot's going to go away. So definitely make sure that you're blocking for it. Okay. The next thing that I would suggest you do to be ready for when we open back up is case presentation process. I think the majority of our offices, or a lot of our offices, could be much better at presenting treatment. And especially right now, we need to get patients to accept treatment more than ever if we're going to hit our goals when we get back. We're going to have more challenges than we did before, because we're going to have patients who have financial issues and health concerns and safety issues. So the better we can get at presenting treatment, getting our patients to say yes, the better it's going to be for the practice. Okay, especially because some of us won't open up with so much hygiene to start. We won't have as many patients in the door. We won't have as many patients to talk to. So we got to get better with the patients that we have that show up, so that we can get our patients in and get them stable and healthy and get the dentistry done. So I just want to challenge you guys, and I teach a lot of this on Front Office Rocks, so I'm not going to go in depth, but I just want you to take you out of the dental box for a minute and put you in a business box, or put you into, we're all going out to lunch at Burger King, okay? The reason I want to do this is because I want to show you how our current process is somewhat broken, and why I think your team could work on this now, so that when you open back up, you're better and more prepared. So the idea of Burger King, okay, I'm taking us all on a field trip to Burger King. If I go to Burger King, I can look up at the menu and I can order Junior Whopper with cheese, extra pickles, no tomatoes, and a Diet Coke. I order off of the menu, okay? That's the whole thing, have it your way. Okay, now let's look at how dental office treatment plan presentations go, okay? The doctor's in the back, or the assistant or whoever, chairside with a patient, and they say, patient, you need 2 crowns, 3 fillings, and a night guard. And the patient shakes their head and says, okay, doc, yeah, that sounds good. I'm ready to do that. And then we walk the patient up front to the front desk. Now the patient's standing at the front desk, the bib's off, their purse is on their shoulder. They're 3 or 4 steps away from our front door. They're standing in front of us, okay? And we say, okay, the doctor has a treatment plan for you. And the patient goes, okay. And we put the treatment plan in front of them. We put it on the counter. And we say, the doctor says you need 2 crowns, 3 fillings, and a night guard. And the patient goes, what? The insurance isn't going to cover it all? Okay, because that's how they always start. And we say, well, no, insurance is an assistance, blah, 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 whatever you say. And the patient goes, oh, well then hold on a minute. Okay, so I'll take the 1 crown because the insurance is covering 1 crown, not the other. I'll take the fillings because they're covered at 80%. And I won't take the night guard. The insurance isn't covering it. Okay, they're picking up a menu. Does that not sound like I'll have a Junior Whopper with cheese, extra pickles, no tomatoes? We're putting our patient's treatment plan in front of them like a menu. When this is the first time they're actually seeing the dollar amount, patients don't know what we're talking about until they see the dollar amount. It's the first time they're seeing it with knowing the insurance isn't going to cover it, and they're 3 steps away from the front door. Our system is broken, okay? Because the issue is until the patient sees the dollar amount, they're not actually considering it. And patients, I don't know if you know this or not, but patients don't like dentistry and they don't like to spend money on dentistry. So they're going to find every way to try to either get in the schedule and get out of there, or think about it, or I only want to do what the insurance covers, or whatever. They're trying to get out as fast as possible because they don't want to spend money on drills and needles in their mouths. So we need to look at our process. And this is something I challenge you to do right now, is how are we presenting, where are we presenting, and when are we presenting to patients their treatment plan? Standing at the front desk, first time they're seeing their money, is not the way to present treatment to a patient. So I would work with your team right now on how do we present treatment? Where do we do it? I have the training on Front Office Rocks. There's a lot of people out there who teach this. So find somebody you believe in and then work with your team, because we need higher case acceptance when we go back than we have now. I believe the consultation room is the best place if you have one to present treatment. Okay. Now I don't know that everybody believes it, but that's what I believe. The consultation room was meant and built in your practice to be a place for you to sit down and have a true conversation with the patient, because people don't like to be sold when they're in fear or when they're stressed. It's not your highest chance of sale or getting the patient to accept treatment is not when they're sitting in the operatory, white knuckled and stressed out with drill noises around them. I want to get them into a place where it's private, where I can have a conversation with them, especially for the higher dollar value or the bigger treatment plans, and actually focus on the patient. I want the highest chance of helping the patient get through the buying cycle, get through their voices in their head, and make the decision to get the treatment done. Because at the end of the day, we're their healthcare provider and we're here to help them get the treatment done. And we're going to have time on our schedules to do this. So we can change our processes right now and come up with a way that works better for your practice that has a higher percentage the patient's going to accept. Now, that being said, if you don't have a consultation room, then there's also options of how to do it chairside. There's other options in your office, maybe the doctor's office or a sitting area. And if you have to do it at the front desk, there's ways to do it. And we can help on all of that. But you should be looking at your case acceptance process or your case presentation process right now and improving it so when you get back, you have higher case acceptance. Okay. Next, we should be working on office organization. It's a great time to get caught up. If you are paperless or trying to be paperless, I think it's funny we call it paperless, but there's more paper than ever. If you have that big scanning pile, if you have the old insurance claims, if you have all this paper, let's get it all caught up. We should walk in that first day back with nothing to be scanned. If there are things around your office that people refer to all the time, let's clean it up. Let's laminate it. A laminator costs, I don't know, $20, and start laminating things in the back. This is how we organize the lab. This is where the supplies go. Here's how you set up a tray. Here's how you file on the insurance. Like, let's get organized. Let's clean out old files. Let's clean out the files that we're shoving in stuff. Get them out, get them in a box, get them into the back. We don't need them anymore. Let's start like it's January 1st, like it's a New Year's resolution. Clean up the doctor's office. Doctors, clean up your desk. Get organized. Have somebody on your team who's super great at organization sit down with you and help you figure out, how can I make this so that this doesn't look like a mess in the future with lab cases and sticky notes? Like, figure out a system that works for you, or go look online for ways to get organized and bring that into your practice. And then lastly, put in a mailbox or communication system in your office. And I can talk about this on the side. My team can tell you about it, but what I suggest is a mailbox with slots, and everybody has a mailbox, and there's communication forms that you use. And when I have to communicate something to somebody and it's not urgent, it's not about today's schedule, it's not about a patient today, I write a form, I write out the information, and I put it in their mailbox. Again, I think that might even be a topic to talk about. So if you're interested in learning more about how to integrate communication in the office, mailbox, communication between the teams and stuff, I could actually do that on a webinar in a couple weeks too. So let me know if you're interested, because I could talk about that for a whole hour if you guys want, to get you guys better organized. Okay, software updates. I do not want to go back to the office and then have to shut down for 4 hours to do an update on my server. I think right now you should reach out to your IT companies. You should look at all the server upgrades that might be coming, look at all of maintenance on your technology, and see if there is anything you can proactively do now so you don't have to shut down later to do it. I also think you should look at if there's a way you can, remote in if you're not already. Let's get that set up for the future. Is there a way that you can start getting training on some of the technology you have so your team is better versed with that technology? Right now you could have training with whatever companies you're working with to be able to be better in the software when we get back. So make sure that you're doing everything so that your team can just get back and go. Because ultimately it's about, what is it? Butts in the, right? It's about butts in the chair. I don't want somebody scrambling around the practice management software trying to figure out how to find out if the lab case is back or if the patient ever saw the specialist. I want butts in the chair, and I want to be able to make sure I'm using every software that we have to its best ability. Okay, in the back, I think not even just dental supplies, I think office supplies. We can get better organized, and we can get our operatories better organized. So take yourself back to 2-3 months ago when you were stressed because you ran out of gloves, or you couldn't find this instrument or that thing. Bring all those stresses together and say, okay, how can we get this better organized? How can we put systems in place? How can we write up a system or a check sheet or pictures so that we have everything we need organized when we get back? How can we make sure that all the supplies are here? Do we have all the implants? Do we have all the graft material? Are we ready to start producing again? And how are we going to stay ready? Stock the rooms, place supply orders if needed, sharpen instruments, clean the operatories from top to bottom. Like there's a plenty of things we can do now that we don't have to do when we get back, including lab organization. I think the lab, besides the office, doctor's office, is probably sometimes the most disorganized area. This is a great time to clean the lab. How are we going to label things? How are we going to make sure that we check lab cases that are in? And how are we going to make sure there's a lab portion of your practice management software that you could be using. Train your team on it. Call on outstanding lab cases, come up with a protocol. Like these are the frustrations. I challenge you, hopefully for the rest of 2020, you don't go to your morning huddle and hear, oh, the lab case isn't in, we have to move the patient. That would be frustrating if it were me, okay? And then bring your office up to the 21st century. Are your insurances all updated, meaning you can log in and check on all of the insurance claims? And does everybody know? And where do you have the password somewhere? Are you getting your passwords updated? Does everybody know how to log in? That's a lot of times the challenge. Are you using the latest things like a LastPass where everybody, when we update a password, everybody gets updated? Learn all the different parts of your software and then integrate this into your new, how are you going to work so that you're so efficient, ultimately butts in the chair, okay? And then my last point on this, and then I'll go to the questions, is remember, change doesn't happen overnight. A lot of times we bring ideas to the dental office and it doesn't happen. And then we bring another idea and it doesn't happen. And that's because change is not like that. You can't just change things. And many times when we're up and running, it's because we're busy and everybody's doing stuff but we're not up and running right now. So this is a perfect time to look at where we are, where we want to be, and what's the gap between those two things. And that's where the work comes in. And we have the time right now to do the work. We also need to understand that change doesn't happen overnight. There is a change model, and there are people on your team that are more about change, and there are ones that are going to drag their feet. There are phases of change. Like I kind of feel like right now, if I were to think about change from when we started in March, I told you I was kind of not in a good mood the last 3 weeks. I think I've kind of moved over here to acceptance, and now it's time to start having fun again. Like there's going to be a new norm, and we're coming out into this new norm, but I've gone through denial and depression and bargaining. Can I just go get my nails done? Can I get my hair done? I'm through all that. And now I'm like, okay, this is the new norm. How do we make this fun again? So just realize that change doesn't happen overnight, and not everybody is all for change. You have some people who are going to resist change, and that's okay. And I have training on this, help you through change. Eventually they have to change. Things don't stay the same. Your practice will not stay the same. And we need everybody to come across to the dark side, to the good side, I guess. But just realize some people are going to be much more open to change than others. And that's okay. We just need to help them through the change model because it doesn't happen overnight. I forgot to mention this earlier on other webinars, that if you would love to see a demo of Front Office Rocks, or you want to learn more about our membership, and besides these the opportunity videos that I'm doing, please feel free to come to Front Office Rocks /Laura. And Leah on my team is doing demos all the time throughout the week, showing people what Front Office Rocks offers and how to use it in your practice. And then, like I said, we have a mastermind call on Thursdays. We have a 12-week practice management playbook that we're unlocking every week for our members to kind of help them flow through the topics that we've been talking about. And then these webinars are available to you if you want them. And remember this, productivity is never an accident. It's always the result of commitment to the excellence, intelligent planning, and focused effort. Right now, productivity for the second half of the year starts right now with your commitment to excellence, your planning, and your focus to open up more productive. So that's my webinar. Let me go to the questions now. So please either use the Q&A or the chat, and I will see what I can do to answer questions. So let's see. Yes, that would be great. Okay, so next week we'll talk about projects you never get to. The week after, we'll talk then about OSHA and the front office and things we might want to consider to change or be conscious of with COVID-19, because even as it gets better, it's not going away. And it's not a bad thing to do anyway. Like, I haven't fully been trained in OSHA, so it's not bad for us to learn as much as we can in the front office. So for sure. I love Somebody Likes Butts in the Chair. Please share that. I would love for you to do that. When you clean up, is it going to merge all the same insurances together? So again, this is some training. So come over and do a mastery course with us at Front Office Rocks. There's employers, there's insurance groups, and then there's plans under the insurance groups. So what I find a lot of times in our practice management software is we have either patients who should be all under the same plan, but we have the plan in 4 different times. So patients are associated with 4 different plans, group numbers, right? Or subgroups or whatever, when really that should have been 1. But somebody entered the plan differently each time. And so there's 4 different ones and 4 different patients. Those can be merged. Then I find that we have the different group numbers, the different plans for the same insurance. So like these 5 Delta Dental groups all go to the same Delta Dental address, but we've got 5 different Delta Dentals in there, when really all of these should go to one address, one Delta Dental. So we could clean that up. Then we've got employer groups. And so in the employer groups, we have these insurances that belong to each employer, right? Or that an employer buys an insurance, okay? What I find is sometimes we have, like what we have here is for California, USCA, U.S.ca. United States of California, I don't know if that's but University of California, San Diego, UCSD. It's spelled out, it's code, it's in acronyms, it's with periods, it's without periods. That's all one employer. So we could condense and bring all of that to one employer. But the issue is, the reason this is such a big cleanup is this one employer now has 20 different Delta Dentals, which has 40 different patients. So true cleanup means you have to condense the patients to the right group. You have to have the right group to the right insurance. You have to have the right insurance to the right employer, which is why we hardly ever tackle it in the dental office, because it's a lot of work. There's a lot of time right now, so we can do that. So I hope that answered that. Okay, so I would love to be able to do this right now, but my company doesn't allow office managers to work during this time. I understand that gets brought up on every webinar. I think that there's workarounds to that, but that's a whole separate topic. I love that your wife has been telling you to clean up your desk, doctors. Get somebody in your team or your wife or your daughter or somebody to help you get organized. That would make your second half of the year better than the first. Okay, let's see. Communicating and getting organized. Okay, great. So we'll talk about that. Well, thank you, Dustin. My pace and delivery is, I would love it if you guys wouldn't mind going out and sharing that on Facebook. I would love that. We don't have standard operating procedures on Front Office Rocks, and let me explain what that means. Standard operating procedures are the procedures you do in your office, and this is how it gets done in your office. We have examples of them, but the reason I've never written them or handbook or policies is because the way you do it in your office is different than I do it. So I can't give you a standard operating procedure that's going to work for your office because it's not the same as mine. The second issue with it is, as soon as we write one, most of the time it changes. So it has to be fluid, right? It has to be like, because as soon as so my thing is write one that is easily changeable. We have them all in our Word documents, like they're saved by the type, and write ones that work for you. But we do have outlines if that helps you. So reach out to us for that. There's a big push towards teledentistry. I agree with you. So Michael says, I have a big reservation about it. What are your thoughts? I think we need to bring our businesses up to the 21st century. I think we're one of the only industries that still has a fax machine for communication. So I think that this has helped us open our eyes that we need to be able to get a hold of our patients, meet them on camera, communicate via websites, use Zoom. Like I think this is a wake-up call for our industry. I do not think teledentistry is going to fix our industry. I think that you can use it in some forms for emergency cases like this, but ultimately, all you can really do is look at a tooth, maybe do a preliminary diagnosis and call in a prescription, but you can't actually help the patient until you see them. So teledentistry will not fix the ability not to do dentistry. I do think, however, though, that you could use technology for smile consultations, for cosmetic interest. I do think we should be able to communicate with our patients outside of the hours of 8 and 5, where we have to call them. We should be able to let people schedule appointments, have a video communication, have a platform to talk with them, because right now we limit them to communicating with us between 8 and 5, Monday through Friday when we're open. But a lot of people they don't do this stuff till the weekends and the evenings, and then they have to wait for us to come back in the office. So that's my long answer with it. I don't think teledentistry is going to fix anything, but we should be looking at technology. There is going to be a link for these. It's frontofficerocks.com/opportunity for this webinar and the other ones. Give us through today to get it up there. So tomorrow, if this isn't up there by tomorrow, let my team know. I want to know if there's checkoff sheets and policies. So he's a dentist who's looking to open or is open without an office manager. We do have all of that on Front Office Rocks. I'm an office manager, and every time something came up in my office that there was something that needed to be written, I wrote it and put it on Front Office Rocks. Now, as members ask questions, if we don't have it on the website, my team sends it to me and I write something around it. So we are adding stuff to the website all the time for you. So it's a good starting point, and good training videos and good documents, and then we add to it as we move forward. What about if the insurance has the same address but a different group number? So, okay, this gets more in depth. So come to my website and go to live chat and ask that question, and I'll get you an answer to that, because I want to be careful. I don't want to tell you how to clean it up and then have you make a mistake. So when it comes to the insurance cleanup, make sure you reach out to us at Front Office Rocks. Okay, good. Now, if I block for primary appointments such as crowns, when do you think the front desk should have it filled? My philosophy for a fully up and running practice that has really good case acceptance is 24 hours in advance. So for me, if tomorrow the primary appointment's at 10 o'clock and it's not filled yet, today at 10 o'clock, I'll open it up and fill it with anything. But we have a really good case presentation process, and we have a lot of new patients that come in. If that makes you nervous, because I see that you say, you get nervous, I would say 48 hours in advance, maybe 72 hours in advance, but I would not go out a week in advance, because the hope is somebody comes in today, especially when we get back open, right? Somebody comes in today and they need a crown. We want to be able to get them in the schedule in the next 48 to 72 hours for two reasons. First of all, it's primary appointment. It's a higher chance that that person's going to need bigger work if we don't get to it right away, right? They might need a root canal or whatever. And if we book it out a week from now, there's a higher chance that they're going to find a reason not to show up. They're going to get scared. Somebody's going to tell them a horrific dental story. They're going to get a bill in the mail for something else, and they're going to cancel. So I want to get them in as soon as possible. That's why I want to hold it for at least 2 days before or a day before, so that I can get people today into our schedule today. So there's less chance of them canceling or not showing up for their appointment, and a higher chance that we're going to help them. So I hope that helps. And maybe right now you stretch it out a little bit, but the goal is to get it so that we can get the patients. If they come in on Monday, they're going to have a crown in their mouth by the end of the week. Okay. Let's see. Okay. I'm interested in communication webinar. Great. We'll do that. I wish I could do, the company's got that. If you have a team member, what's in it for me attitude, do you talk to them individually or as a whole team? Individually. So the question is, if you have a team member that's in it, what's in it for me? Well, I should start over again. You have to have a culture that suits a team culture. So I talk about the importance of a culture for the practice. So if your entire culture is what's in it for me, then you need to have a team meeting about that. You need to change the culture, okay? But if your culture is, we work as a team, we have a goal, we know where we're going, and one person is what's in it for me, then it needs to be an individual meeting. I think you need to assess what's really going on, right? I always say, when you're trying to fix an issue in the practice, start with the team, explain the why, explain how do we handle this, what the issue is, make sure everybody's in agreement. Then after that, when somebody steps out and isn't doing whatever it is that the change is, then that person needs to get talked to individually. So I would look at the culture as an office and then deal with the person. How realistic is my expectations to know how many days I watch Front Office Rocks? Can they burn out? Okay, good. So what is the expectation of what my team should watch with Front Office Rocks, and do they burn out? Can they burn out? Yes. I talk fast, and watching me for hours can be exhausting. So I am going to tell you, yes, your team will burn out, can burn out. One of the onboarding things I do with my team, I actually hire non-dental people. And when they come on to be a member service support rep, they have to watch nauseating hours of me to learn everything about dental. So they'll tell you, you'll get burnout. My thought is this: when somebody is brand new to your practice, or right now during a lot of opportunity time, I would suggest 1 hour a day of training. You don't want to make them sit down and do 8 hours of training in a day watching videos. They're not going to comprehend. They're not going to learn. They're going to get burnt out. So 1 hour a day for new hires and for opportunity this time during shutdown. When we get back into the practice for continual training, I suggest everybody does 1 hour a week, because we need to continually be training our team. We need to continually be reminding our team, customer service, verbal skills, systems. So 1 hour a week would be my goal for that. So hopefully that answered that. My team can actually give you some help with implementation. There's certain times of the day that makes more sense to do it too, not in the middle of the day, but at the beginning of the day or right after lunch. So reach out to my team if you need help with that. Coverage books can also be cleaned up. Yes, somebody asked about coverage books. So again, come over to YouTube channel, or if you're a member of Front Office Rocks, come to our EagleSoft Dentrix videos. We talk about coverage books, but yes, this is the perfect time to clean up all the crap, because I always say crap in is crap out. So when we're putting crap in, coverage books, insurance, employer groups, we're going to get crap out. So yes, definitely do that. And then the last question, because I kept you guys over time today, is, do you find patients wanting pre-auths done before crowns or larger work because it's harder to do with goal? Okay, here's my thought on pre-authorizations. I'm not a huge fan of pre-auths and predeterminations. This is a whole separate subject that I don't even want to get into, but I believe that a lot of times we become so insurance driven in our practices that we do pre-auths and predeterminations as like a crutch. I don't think we should be doing them as much as we do. There are scenarios when it's needed, when a patient's really worried about finances, or maybe it's a crown versus an implant, a bridge versus an implant or something like that. That being said, every insurance person on here, I wish I could see your face. When you get the insurance pre-authorization or predetermination pack, what's the fine print that it says right at the bottom of that form? And if you're a doctor here and you don't know, I will tell you, this is not a guarantee of benefits. Okay, so a pre-auth and a predetermination in my mind doesn't guarantee anything. So that being said, I try to veer away from doing pre-authorizations and predeterminations if possible with the patients, and get the patient in for the treatment. We know, we've done our homework, we know the percentages, we know the insurance plans, and at the end of the day, whether the insurance covers that procedure or not, does the patient clinically need it? Yes. So if we're doing something they clinically need, whether the insurance covers it or not, we need to remind them that we're their healthcare providers and we don't work for the insurance companies. So on that point, mic drop, just kidding. I'm going to call it. This is, I appreciate all of you guys being here. You guys stuck in for over an hour. If you're a member and you're not signed up, please come join us tomorrow for the mastermind. We're going to get more in depth with all of these questions and whatever you need to know. If not, go ahead, get registered now. I think you do it right on that opportunity time for next week's webinar. And we're going to keep doing this till we get out of quarantine. So I really, really, really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you. I hope you have an amazing day. Stay home, stay healthy. We're going to get through this. And at the end of this, we're going to be better for it. So thank you guys. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.